Morning.
Good morning, Your
Good morning.
Excellency, President David Granger, members of the Diplomatic Corps, friends from the University of Guyana, ladies and gentlemen. We're glad that you're here at the opening ceremony for this historic Diaspora Engagement Conference. And to get things started, I would like to invite Professor Ivor Griffith, Vice Chancellor and Principal of the University of Guyana, to welcome us to this historic occasion. Professor Griffith.
I would get over here and round of applause for Vice Chancellor. Let's try it again. Excellency David R. Granger, members of the esteemed National Assembly, members of the Diplomatic Corps, university citizens, whether at home or from abroad, good morning and greeting to all.
Good morning. Morning.
One of my favorite philosophers, Jorge Santayana, once wrote that if you really want to know what people think, don't pay regard to what they say, pay regard to what they do. And I think that evidence of what we think of the diaspora in terms of its importance is manifested in what we are doing at this conference and with this conference to cement homeland and diaspora-based Guyanese relations. You may or may not know that this conference has 4 stated objectives. I'll remind you or tell you what they are. To discuss global best practices in diaspora engagement policies and practices, and strengthening partnerships with diaspora organizations. To engage the diaspora in facilitating the pursuit of entrepreneurship, innovation, and social and human capital opportunities. To enable diaspora and homeland citizens to give back to Guyana tangibly, and to experience some of our nation's beauty. And last but not least, the aim of this conference is to launch a Caribbean Diaspora Engagement Center to institutionalize engagement in research, in outreach, and in talent management. But Excellency and ladies and gentlemen, I want to also share with you some of the unstated objectives of this conference. One of those unstated objectives relates to the indispensability of the diaspora to the rebuilding of our university. I think it's also true to say that any observer of our nation will come to realize very quickly that we have a number of tensions in our society. Some are political, some are racial. And the reality is any effort to bring the homeland and diaspora connection is going to face some of those tensions, some of those political vicissitudes, some of those racial vicissitudes. My aim is to enable the University of Guyana to be a neutral zone of engagement, that irrespective of your political apprehension or your racial-driven or other related apprehensions, you should feel comfortable working with the University of Guyana, but not necessarily be sensitive to a ministry being the source of that engagement. I'll tell you though, ladies, that a third unstated goal of our Diaspora Engagement Conference is to link our diaspora outreach to the renaissance of the university, a project that we started in June of 2016. But let me end by telling you that an important but unstated objective of mine is to use this conference this week to inject into our economy some badly needed finances to help with job creation, give a fillip to what we're doing in the economic zone. As of last night, we had 243 people registered at this conference. Some from abroad, some in Guyana. And I want to tell you, Excellency, where some of our Guyanese and non-Guyanese have come from. They have come from or are coming from the Turks and Caicos, United Kingdom, Canada, Grenada, Jamaica, Barbados, Nigeria, Ghana, St. Lucia, Mexico, British Virgin Islands, Trinidad and Tobago, United States. And from the United States itself, friends, family are coming from Georgia, Texas, New Jersey, Florida, New Mexico, California, Maryland, Virginia, Washington, D.C. Some Guyanese here are coming back after being away for decades. One Guyanese has so far the record of being away for the longest period. I want to invite her to stand. Ms. Gillian Williams is coming back to her homeland after being away for 38 years. Some people who are here or who will be coming later this week are not only coming for the first time in a long time, many of them are bringing non-Guyanese born friends and family. I know Norman Monroe is bringing his daughter, not Guyanese born, but Guyanese by sociological osmosis. I myself, my two children, not Guyanese born, and my granddaughter is coming here for the first time. And we're not unique. I know that many non-Guyanese who come here will fall in love with our homeland and will want to return. Think of what those 243 people and possibly more will need in the hotels we're staying at, the restaurants we're eating from, the taxis we're taking. The departure tax is already built into the ticket for those who are coming from abroad. The infusion of funding is not to be underestimated. As a matter of fact, I've asked one of our distinguished economists, business professors, from whom you'll be hearing later on this week, to do an economic estimate of what this week will have meant for the Guyana economy. There are multipliers which we should not take for granted. But the conference today and tomorrow are not the only elements of importance that I want to encourage you to be mindful of. It's important, especially for Guyanese, myself included, who was away for a long time, to have an appreciation for the love, beauty of this native land of ours. So we're saying this week, and I want to encourage not only Guyanese who are returning, but Guyanese who live here, go to a place that you've not gone to before. We have 10 locations. If you want to go to Agopram, if you want to go to Surama, if you want to go to Kaitro Falls, if you want to go to the Botanic Gardens and listen and view the birds, if you want to do a walking tour of Georgetown, don't know how many of you have gone to the Panama Winery on the Linden-Sluzak Highway. Find an opportunity to know our native land by going and visiting and falling in love, either for the first time or falling in love again. We have an opportunity, particularly the Guyanese, with remarkable time and talent to give back. And so we're encouraging folks, and if you go to page 67 of your program, you'll see the 7 different opportunities to give back, whether it is 3 hours at the hospital, or 4 hours working with a school, or a few hours at a clinic. We're saying that this should be an investment of time and talent by our folk, Guyanese and non-Guyanese, in enabling the nation to be beneficiaries of the skills and time and talent that we have. So this week is a complex week of many moving parts, and we shall end the week on Friday with the investiture, and there are several other people coming for the investiture who are not for the main conference. And they are all not academics. They're not all from institutions of higher learning. Among the people coming who are on the academic side is the Vice Chancellor of the University of the West Indies, long-standing friend of mine from the University of Virgin Islands, Professor Dion Phillips. But we've got non-academics who think what we're doing at the University of Guyana is important enough for them to be here and find a way to support it. Including in that set of non-academics is the President of the Caribbean Development Bank, Dr. Warren Smith. And we shall end the week right here in this room with a grand cultural extravaganza that showcases the talent of Guyanese at home and Guyanese abroad. Coming from Ghana will be a group of Guyanese. Coming from the United Kingdom will be another group of Guyanese, along with Guyanese of all races and culture within our native land to be able to showcase what we're doing. Ladies and gentlemen, putting this together just did not happen. I'd like to invite to stand to be recognized the members of the planning committee, some based here, some based in the Caribbean, some based in Europe, some based in North America. Let's have the members of the planning committee stand to be recognized, please. Don't be shy, stand so we can go. Let's give them a round of applause. But you would imagine that, notwithstanding the hard and talented work of the planning committee, we also could not do this without financial sponsorship. And I'll tell you what I said last night, Mr. President, at the welcome reception. We have been able to build the connectivity for this project, as we are doing for the University of Guyana writ large, by bridging the financial public sector, private sector divide. And so if you go to your program, at the end of the program, you'll see the private sector companies that have contributed and supported. You'll see the government ministries, starting with the President himself, who will lend tangibly to making this happen. You'll see also, and you'll hear tomorrow, on the diplomatic side, what the Mexican embassy has done and is doing with us, what the Indian High Commissioner has done and is doing with us. The success of this conference, the success of the University of Guyana's Renaissance cannot be a one-dimensional success. We've got to bring all the relevant constituent parts. And so I want to thank them, our supporters and our sponsors, and I view this as an initial down payment on the success of the Renaissance. So let me end where I began, and that is to invoke philosopher Jorge Santander. You really want to know what people think? Don't pay regard to what they say, pay regard to what we do. And in the context of Santaya's prescient proposition, we intend to do something more than have a conference that meets for a week. So let me tell you what are some of the things we plan to do. We plan to produce a publication out of this conference. It will be the first product of the University of Guyana Press. We plan also to launch, we plan also to launch a Center for Regional Diaspora Engagement that can take the work started here forward, that will host every 2 years a conference that brings Guyanese, brings other diaspora folks to the homeland to have engagement, giving, not only dreaming, but also doing. We plan to have that center find a way to, in the context of some of the apprehensions that many Guyanese have about working with a government ministry, establish and manage a talent database where we can know who in the diaspora has what interests, what skill, who wants to contribute, and find a way to facilitate. We plan not only to say that we're interested in diaspora, we plan to demonstrate by having a work program that takes this conference into the future, going from strength to strength. So I welcome you to this historic occasion. I encourage you to maximize the participation both here and elsewhere for this week. And I encourage you, if you're coming for the first time after a long time, plan to come back very soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor. I just want to acknowledge the ministers of government who are here with us today, morning to you, and to add to what the Vice Chancellor said about the sponsorship that made this conference possible. We have had some support after the programs were printed, And those additional sponsors have been updated online, and we also have some handouts to give you to let you know those additional sponsors. Now, what I'd like to do is to invite what we describe as some voices from the diaspora and the homeland to give some very short remarks as to their experiences and views at this historic time. So, in that regard, I'd like to ask Dr. Dan Waldering from New York to come and speak to us for 2 minutes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Your Excellency, the President of Guyana, thank you. Esteemed Vice Chancellor of the University of Guyana, thank you very much. Members of the Hard Working Committee, because you need to put a lot of effort into this to make it possible. It's not a one-man show, as you've heard. Thank you very much. Members of the University of Guyana staff and the students, thank you. And before I start, how about those students from Guyana who went to the United States and represented us in STEM? And did so well and made us proud. And in fact, the brainchild of Mrs. Granger. I bring you greetings from this country. And some people say that more Guyanese live in this country than in this country. And when you look at the statistics, you find that by the year 2050, more Guyanese will be living in this country, because the population will be doubling itself. So in my short presentation, let me begin by adding 3 new letters to the lexicon, which would be PGO, persons of Guyanese origin. PGO, persons of Guyanese origin. Now what is that? It doesn't matter where you are, where you belong, as long as you can identify with the dear land of Guyana, you're a PGO, a person of Guyanese origin. In 1992, President Chang Chang traveled to New York to thank the Diaspora for the change in government in this country. In 2015, President Granger went to New York to thank the people there for the change of government in this country. Now what does it show? It shows the power of the diaspora and how much importance these heads of state have placed in the diaspora. Now today we have created history for the very first time, because as the esteemed Vice Chancellor said, this has been in the making for a long time, and it has not happened until this year and today. So today we're meeting for the very first time in one place to discuss one thing only, as to how all of us can pool our talents together to make our country better. And I'd like to recognize my very good friend, Professor Ivor Griffith, whose vision it is to have this conference today. So let's hear it from him. Now, I've brought with me here, I didn't come alone, I brought with me here my son, Sanju, who was born in New York City, who loves America, but who calls himself Guyanese.
Right.
Now, persons like my son, who told me this morning that his genetics is tied up in this country, persons like my son, now these persons present our first challenge to the diaspora. There are thousands of young people of Guyanese parentage who live in New York City and other countries. What do we do with them? How do we harness their talents to come and better serve this country? How about the parents with a multitude of skills, as you heard about, in all different fields, all different aspects of achievement, how do we involve them in research in Guyana? And that is going to be a challenge for the people over here to get involved in. And let's start with the teachers. Guyanese teachers have been teaching the world for years in various subjects. You see them all over the planet. New York City, they're in the school system, the university system. Professor Abramovich was in the administration at New York College and other colleges in the United States of America. We've been lending our talents or brains or everything to educate the world. And the teachers deserve a lot of respect and commendation this morning, because I'm a teacher myself, so I'm putting a plug in for that. Now, I bring you greetings from Richmond Hill. Richmond Hill has unofficially 300,000 Guyanese. It is the biggest single concentration of Guyanese outside of Guyana. And when you look at that population, think about the enormous talent, enormous resources that Richmond Hill possesses. And I will be speaking more about that in my presentation later. It has been called Little Guyana by the city of New York. That is the kind of respect that it has endeavored. And if you can't find it in Guyana, you can find it in Richmond Hill. There was one time when we used to buy hassa from Richmond Hill and bring it to sell. And you could bring the creek water too, if you so desire. Now, when you look at the populations of Richmond Hill, the Bronx, the different states of the United States of America, and Venezuela, the Caribbean, Brazil, and other places, you have more people living outside than inside. And the question is, what do we do with all these skills that we possess in the diaspora? The economy, as you know, has become very globalized. It means economics, it means business, it means investment. It does not only mean voluntary services to the government. But for this to happen, we have to embrace the diaspora. We have to make it work. There are two streets in Richmond Hill when we did the research that remit $500,000 to this economy every year. Just two streets in Richmond Hill. Now think of the other streets when you look at it. $450 million are remitted to this country annually. Think of minus $450 million where our GDP would go. So the diaspora is presenting a very integral and important part in this country. Now let me make this very brief. So let me make some quick suggestions. The first is we must recognize people from abroad, Guyanese abroad, who are making enormous contributions to this country. That is one of the things we should do, reach out to Guyanese abroad who have been esteemed in various fields of endeavor. And I'd like to, this morning, recognize a certain gentleman, Mr. Reds Pereira. Remember him? Yes. Now, I would recommend that the Providence Media Center be renamed the Reds Pereira Media Center. And we should do that very quickly while he's still around. There are many Guyanese educators abroad. We should team up a robotic engineering group here with Richmond Hill High School, where the principal there is a Guyanese, and he's waiting for the call. Somebody has to make the call. Then, there are other aspects of endeavor that we should try to do. Let us use the technology to bridge the gap, so that when we use all of these, we can improve the situation in the diaspora. Now, the University of Guyana, as a start, in my mind, should sponsor an annual lecture dedicated to the ideas of Chetty Jagan, Forbes Burnham, and Walter Rodney, so that we could get all these gentlemen, the leaders of this country, their ideas and what they stand for. And we should not forget our women, because if you want to build a society, educate women. And as for the prison, Mr. President, I would recommend that you tear down the prison, build a park, so that Guyanese can go there and de-stress and refresh. Absolutely. And let us call the park Jordan Burnham Recreation Park. It is time that we heal. After 50 years, the bones are still there. We want to heal, and we should use this conference, we should use the diaspora as a method of healing. And finally, if you look at this flag, see the golden arrowhead? It points upwards. So let's sing, you did it last night, let's do it again. Onward, upward, may we ever grow. Day by day in strength and beauty grow. Till at last, each of us may show what Guyana's sons and daughters can be. Thank you very much.
Okay, after those remarks by Dr. Right, we're going to ask Dr. Indiana Bentoport of the University of West Indies School of Business to reserve matters.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. His Excellency, VC, Griffiths, colleagues from the organizing committee, conference delegates, good morning.
Good morning.
It is a pleasure to be here today. I'm not Guyanese, but I feel like an honorary Guyanan today. I just want to raise a few points briefly. And these are points that are informed largely by my experience as a diasporan, as a Jamaican, and as an academic who is deeply interested in diaspora engagement. I think this conference is very important. It is significant that it is being organized by the University of Guyana, an academic institution. And this suggests the significant role that the university, the academic, has to play and can play in engaging the diaspora across the region. As a neutral player, there are lingering issues within the diaspora, and the university, the academic institution, has a key role to play in being that linchpin to pull together the different interests, the different stakeholders around the issues of engagement. I may not look it, but I've been married for some time, and I've known my husband for 28 years. And I say that to suggest that diaspora engagement is like any other relationship, like a marriage. The players have to get to know each other. So research, getting to know the diaspora is significant. Likewise, it cannot be an extractive relationship in which Caribbean governments and people tend to do at times, is to view the diaspora as the group from which they will extract things from. The suggestion is that it ought to be a mutually beneficial relationship, one in which the diaspora benefits and our peoples across the region benefits. That means understanding that a strong, informed, empowered, knowledgeable Guyanese diaspora is also a strong Guyana. It's also a Guyana where its people will feel empowered, will feel as if being a part of the diaspora doesn't mean that they cannot contribute and that they are not appreciated. There is sometimes a tendency to think of diasporans as the people who left, who ran away. But more and more there needs to be a greater understanding that those persons who ran away are the persons who actually have the resources to contribute. There is a desire to contribute, and there ought to be more understanding and steps towards making those steps to enable that contribution. So I think I want to close. Having a hand in the program, I don't want to abuse it. But just to underscore the importance of this conference, the importance of the dialogue which is to take place, and how important it is in actually marking that movement from what I've seen as almost a silent partnership over the years between the diaspora and the Caribbean to moving into a more formalized engagement where the diaspora is recognized, a place is made for the diaspora to participate, and that participation is facilitated. Thank you, and I wish you a wonderful conference.
Thank you. Well, we do know that we have the head of state of Guyana here, His Excellency Mr. David Ranger. And of course, as head of state, his job never really stops. And we understand he has to deal with some of these matters of state that don't stop. So what we're going to do is to adjust the program and to ask His Excellency, who needs no introduction here or abroad, to come and give his remarks to formally open this Diaspora Engagement Center.
Thank you. Please be seated. I first must apologize for disrupting the program, but somebody disrupted my life just now. Ministers of the government, members of the National Assembly, members of the Diplomatic Corps, Principal and Vice Chancellor of the University of Guyana, Professor Edward Griffith, presenters, officials of the University of Guyana, members of the judiciary, private sector. I'm very happy to be here this morning, and I'm very sorry to have to leave you so quickly. But this is an important ceremony for me. As you know, I enrolled in the University of Guyana as an undergraduate in 1965, 52 years ago. And I went back to the same classrooms I left the previous year as a student at Queen's College. The University of Guyana, established only 2 years before I entered in 1963, had no campus at the time. Classes had to be conducted in the evening when the QC students left. Prime Minister Forbes Brown received 586 hectares of the former sugar plantation Turkine on behalf of the Guyanese nation on the 24th of May 1966, just 2 days before independence. And he embarked on the construction of the campus, giving the University of Guyana a permanent home. And that campus, as you know, was opened a day or two after we became a republic in February 1970. At a personal level, I feel that I've been a witness to the university's passage from its infancy. I love the university as a student. I love the university as a lecturer. I love the university as a member of council. And I love the university as president of the Guild of Graduates. As president of the country, I still love the university, not as a peer, but as a product of that great institution. And I'd like this morning to recommit myself to the university's progress. The university from the start suffered from what I would call birth defect. The ordinance was assented to only in April 1963, and the university was inaugurated less than 6 months later, on the 1st of October 1963, and classes began on the 2nd of October. Well, there was something of a haste. But worse than the haste was that the university was born in the midst of political disturbances in the 1960s. And regrettably, those disturbances deprived it of the support of a significant section of society. The decision of the government of the day not to integrate with the University of the West Indies family reflected its own refusal not to integrate with the Federation of the West Indies. Dr. Eric Williams, then the UWI Pro-Chancellor, failed to convince the government not to establish an independent university. Well, the decision to stay outside the UWI family is history, but there have been some consequences. The university in its early decades, in my view, drifted from its objectives of discovery and dissemination of knowledge for national development. It enrolled a disproportionately high number of students in the arts and social sciences as compared with the natural sciences. About 95% of the students in the first decade, for example, were employees of the public service, of public corporations, of the teaching profession, and fewer than 5% came from the private sector. Certain growing pains compounded the university's work effects. The economic situation in the late 1970s and early 1980s had a negative impact on financing. Several programs could no longer be supported by state funds. The university's results fell behind the UWI's Caribbean campuses in Barbados, Cape Hill in Jamaica, Mona, and St. Augustine in Trinidad and Tobago. I would say, however, that the university experienced something of a scientific and technological shift as Guyana became a republic in 1970. It was the start of a brilliant era of visionary leadership. Dennis Irvin, appointed Vice Chancellor in 1969, was a scientist. He thought as a scientist, he acted as a scientist. And he served under a government which sought to encourage greater access to higher education by abolishing tuition fees in 1974. Irvin understood the need and undertook the task of balancing the university's affinity for the humanities with the necessity for embracing the sciences. You'll get accustomed to that. The university during the Irvin era employed lecturers from academia around the world. It enjoyed respect for its intellectual rigor. It expanded the breadth of its programs to include agriculture, education, earth and environmental sciences, fisheries, the natural sciences and social sciences, and technology. The university, thereby, in spite of its financial and material constraints, provided opportunities for thousands of Guyanese who never before dreamt of acquiring tertiary education. The university's second science and technology shift is about to start. This country is on a developmental pathway to become a green state. The Green Development Agenda will promote increased investment in biodiversity management, in coastal zone management, in solid waste management, in ecological and environmental services, in eco-education and ecotourism, in information and communication technology, in the extension of its protected areas, and in the generation of renewable energy. These are the objectives of the Green State. Guyana, located in the center of the Guyana Shield, one of the world's last remaining tracts of virgin rainforest, is rich in biodiversity. It is a green global asset which must be protected for mankind and for the sustainable development of countries which belong to the sheep. Guyana's ecosystems support diverse species to the extent that, at least up to 2010, Guyana's species status was estimated at 8,000 plant species, 467 species of fish, 130 amphibians, 179 reptiles, 814 birds, 225 mammals, 1,673 arthropods, over 1,200 fungi, 33 bacteria, 13 nematodes, 17 mollusks, and an estimated 30 viruses. Guyana has a total of 1,182 native tree species. Guyana therefore possesses abundant natural capital which ranges from the islands of the Pacific, the three largest of which are the same size as the British Virgin Islands, from the lowlands and wetlands of the coastland, from the highlands, the grasslands, the rainforests of the hinterland, the spectacular rapids, rivers and waterfalls, and the lakes. All of these provide the habitat to scores of rare animals, including 20 of the world's largest, including high level of endemicity. Guyana possesses priceless natural resources. We cannot sit on our hands. We cannot sit on these bountiful resources. Guyana, larger than England and Scotland combined. The British High Commissioner here. And only take great pleasure. Guyana, larger than England and Scotland combined, however, is deficient in the physical infrastructure essential for economic development. Development in the form of aerodromes, bridges, highways, housing, deep water ports, and stellings. Guyana's coastal and riverine defenses, its conservancies and drainage and irrigation systems must be repaired and maintained continuously in order to protect human habitations from the adverse effects of climate change and the rising sea levels caused by global warming, flooding, and extreme weather patterns. Guyana's green development strategy, therefore, aims at advancing climate adaptation so as to protect its fragile coastline and to reduce environmental hazard, which can be destructive of our people's livelihood. The university, this university, UG, is central to fulfilling the scientific and technological objectives which the Green State requires. The university must drive the intellectual processes of green development by becoming the incubator of technology and the nurturer of skills and talents. The university must establish institutions to educate students to advance our green development. Institutions such as the Biodiversity Center. I think I see Dr. Thomas smiling. This country needs biologists. This country needs botanists, needs zoologists to document and study its unique and unmatched biodiversity. It needs engineers to erect infrastructure in the hinterland, to install hydroelectric, wind, solar, and biomass energy generation plants. It needs geologists and gemologists to provide services to the sustainable management of our extractive sectors. It needs agriculturists to promote food security It needs technologists to develop our information and communications technology. Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, the University of Guyana, if it is to survive and thrive, must become a university for Guyana. The National University must be responsive to national needs. How could it be otherwise? Thank you.
Thank you for those remarks, Mr. President, and we appreciate you having to leave. Short remarks from the Diaspora and Homeland, and we'll continue with Mr. Chet Golden, Director of Guyana Diaspora Incorporated, who's going to give us remarks from Russia.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Honorable Ministers of Government, members of the National Assembly, members of the Diplomatic Corps, colleagues, friends. It is indeed a pleasure for me to be here. I am a lawyer by training. I've lived and worked in Russia for the last 25 years, where I run a tax and accounting advisory firm, advising foreign companies coming to do business in Russia. It has always been my dream, my desire, to take those skills and the experiences I have learned in general, and specifically working with foreign investors, to parlay those into Guyana. It's an issue I've had for a long time. And finally, in the last 12 months, I've been spending almost half of my time here in Guyana doing various things. One of the projects that I've worked on, actually, me and my partners and colleagues have set up one of the first crowdfunding platforms here in Guyana called Slingshot Funding, and actually a sponsor of the event here today. One other project that I started working on, which I called my utopian dream, was to set up something called Guyana Diaspora Inc. This had just started when I met the Honorable Vice Chancellor, and he told me what he was doing, and it was clear that our objectives coincide, and it did not make sense for us to work independently. And he was kind enough to invite me to join the planning committee. I'm convinced that, like I said, when I met the Vice Chancellor, it used to be my utopian dream. But now, today as we hear, it's no longer utopia, it's real. It can happen, it's realistic. And I like to say that the diaspora holds, if not the key, they hold a very important key in Guyana's development. So I'd like to encourage all of you, I'd like to thank those who are here, I'd like to thank both people who are here in Guyana who participated, I'd like to thank those like myself who've come a far way to be here, for us to indeed join forces, work hard, and make this a reality, make my utopian dream into a reality. Thank you very much.
Now I'd like to ask Dr. Raquel Thomas, Director of Resource Management and Training, Eurograma, give her remarks about this event.
Good morning, everyone. All protocols observed. I was thinking what I was going to say this morning, but since I live here, I did study abroad, but I came back because Guyana has so many wonderful things to offer. I'm actually a biologist and a very proud University of Guyana graduate, proud to the alumni. Could everybody raise their hands who attended University of Guyana? Wonderful, wonderful. So I'm really proud. I started UG about 30 years ago when I was a very young, well, still a teen. And I did do further studies. I am a biologist, a tropical forest ecologist actually. I did postgrad. And you know, when you study tropical forest ecology, it really makes no sense to stay in a country like the United Kingdom. So I came back. And we have over 85% forests in Guyana, and I work currently at a wonderful organization called Iwokrama. I think I do have a theory, and I see Major General Joe Singh here. I do have a theory that once you're Guyanese and you get the opportunity to really experience the vast beauty of this country, you never want to leave. At least that happened with me. Or, in the case of some people, you keep coming back. I know that some people have been away for decades, and I really would like to encourage you to actually try doing one of the visits on Thursday into the interior, so you can start experiencing this beautiful country. And of course, once you do that, you will keep coming back. From the perspective of the diaspora and people staying back in Guyana, I like that, what that message says on that particular poster. It says, making a difference together. I often hear people speak of the diaspora and people here as if we're separate. And I think too often there's a perception that we are separate and we should be separate or whatever as well. But making a difference together, I think, is very important. I think we have to work together. I was fortunate to attend a diaspora meeting in DC in April, where I happened to be presenting at a wonderful conference called Earth Optimism. One of the messages, I just want to say, one of the messages of that conference really resonated with me. It spoke to looking beyond the doom and gloom. Too often we look at the negative and forget that there's so much positivity around. And in Guyana as well, sometimes we speak to a lot of negativity, but there's so many positive things happening here. And we really have to start engaging that positive energy and harnessing partnerships to really make Guyana a better place, to make University of Guyana a better place. I am really grateful to the University of Guyana for giving me the foundation. I went to UG at a time when there was national service, and I enjoyed national service. I know some of my colleagues here, Paul, who's one of my best friends. She was in the same village with me, and I know some other persons been here. There are many debates whether it was a good thing or not. But for me, it was amazing. I got to see Kimbia and Ibini and the beautiful parts of this country. And maybe that is what inspired me to actually become a tropical forest ecology to where I am now, ecologist, and really have propelled me to really try and move around this country to enjoy the beauty, the food, the people. I mean, it's not just a natural environment and the natural beauty, it's about our food, our culture, our people. And I think all the foreigners among us, the non-Guyanese, would agree with me. I see quite a few here. I think Mr. Bill Mayer from the UK is here, so I think some other people would agree with me. So I think we have to harness those positive elements. At the DC Diaspora meeting that I went to, there were 3 ministers present. And one of the persons did say something, I had to check back because I didn't have my experience. But I think I will say it here. And she said that when they come here, they don't feel welcomed. I think they have to deal with all these elephants in the room. They don't feel that Guyanese home make them feel welcome. And I took a step. I said, really? Because I work with many people coming from the diaspora, and I don't have that experience. I'm living here. And I think we have to start having a conversation with each other, and not among each other, so the diaspora is talking at one end, and the people at home are fretting at the other end. And we need to really start engaging and actually putting together projects that can actually help this country. One of the fundamental areas that I think we can all help in, we don't have to wait till the government, is education. Education is the root. I mean, look at the wonderful work the Team Guyana did. It was Karen and Mrs. Ranger's Homeland and St. Rose's girl, by the way. St. Rose's alumni, Minister Cathy Hughes, are you here? It was Homeland and Diaspora working together to make a fantastic thing happen. That thing had me so energized. I know I have no talent in that area. I like plants and animals and art and so on, but I have no talent in robotics. But it just had the internet lasting year for our top. We finished in top 10. It's just amazing. It's amazing what we could do. I would like every child in this country to visit the interior. That's my personal dream. I'm sorry President isn't here, but I know he agrees with me. I think when you get that experience, even if you don't stay, even if you go abroad and you share your knowledge, we're all global citizens now. I think when you get the experience as a youth of experiencing Guyana's interior, you know, when you burst out of the forest into the Rupinui, you go to Pomeroon, the most beautiful river, the Moruca River. I love that river. It's my favorite river. My grandmother is from the Pomeroon. So there's a deep love and connection in all these places. But I do believe, fundamentally, if our kids can get that experience, they'll develop a national spirit of loving this country. And even if they don't decide to stay, they will always come back and contribute. That's my personal belief. And I would like to challenge everybody in this room to let us make that happen. Let us give children that do not have the opportunity to do this, help us to make that happen. And I think in that way, that kind of education and other processes like the robotics, the business innovation is very important for young people. We can do it. Let us, the diaspora, and us, what we call the homies. I like your term. What is it? PGO? People. I like that. Maybe just do away with that word diaspora. And we all become one. And let's work together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rebecca. And after that, what we have now is the performance, a cultural item by our distinguished artist in resident, Keith Bates, and the Renaissance performance.
This is a composition that I call View from the Shore, and it's the first time it's being played anywhere in the world. So, View from the Shore. And then we go into my other composition, the rest of the band.
my pleasure now to ask Mr. Alan Hussein, Senior Lecturer in the Faculty of Education Humanities in the University of Guyana, to give the vote of thanks. Mr. Hussein.
Thank you, Dr. Young, members of the diplomatic corps, ministers and other officials of government, Vice Chancellor, officials and members of the University of Guyana community, members of the diaspora, the local community, invitees, ladies and gentlemen all. As we stand on the brink of starting our conference presentations, it is appropriate that we thank those persons, individuals, groups and companies who have contributed to the success of this conference and to ensuring that we are here to spend 2 days in fruitful deliberations which could have great consequences for the development of our country. I'd like to begin by thanking Professor Ivor Griffith, the Vice Chancellor of the University of Guyana, for his vision and energy. Please give him a big hand. In conceptualizing the Diaspora Conference and working very hard to bring it to success. The Diaspora Engagement Committee, ably headed by Dr. Fitzgerald Yaw, give him also a big hand. And the hard-working members of this committee, both locally and abroad, who spent many months working through the fine details and making sure that everything is perfectly planned for what we're going to have here today. Last night to this morning and in a few days coming up. And also behind the scenes, I must say, the members of the university and the clerical staff, persons like Christine, Daniel, Andrew, and others who have been working behind the scenes to make sure that arrangements are in place. You will find them in the secretariat just outside of this room. Please stop by to tell them thanks because they did a lot of work behind the scenes to make sure that arrangements go smoothly. And I could also at this point say that all of you are reminded to visit the Secretariat if you are interested in the Compact Day tours. And in the Secretariat you'll find information. You'll also find information from Dr. Raquel Thomas. She'll be in the room with the booths to arrange your tours. So we thank all of these persons who have been working on all of these details for the conference. Our corporate sponsors, we cannot forget them because without them, the conference would not have been possible. We thank them for their donations in cash and in kind. Speakers here this morning, and speakers with the rest of today and tomorrow, from home and diaspora, we thank you for your bringing the fruits of your thoughts, your expertise, your experience, your research, and giving it generously to this effort. We thank you for doing that so generously and wholeheartedly. Artists in residence, Mr. Keith Wade, and Renaissance performers, we thank you for your musical expertise both last evening, today, and I'm sure for the rest of the conference. The last piece that you did was excellent. I was speaking along with you as you went along there. So thank you very much for that. All the persons who will be serving as chairs, rapporteurs, the photographers, and everybody else, we thank you all. So we thank all of you who are here this morning, special invitees, ministers of government, officials of government, taking time off from your busy work, members of the University of Guyana community, deans, heads of departments, and lecturers, we thank you for being here. The management and staff of the Ramada Princess Georgetown Hotel, thank you very much for the excellent arrangements both last evening, this morning, and I know you will continue to do a good job as we go along. Having these arrangements made is very good. It allows us to focus on our discussions and so on, so we thank you. Members of the media for being here, representatives in the booth, bringing different companies and sponsorship support and dimensions to this conference, we thank all of you. I must also say special thanks to the members of the diplomatic corps who will bring their experience and add their voice to the conference. Please give them a big hand. They will bring their dimensions of lived experience to this conference to help us as we now begin to embark on this era of diaspora engagement. Ministers of the government who have supported the conference long before it started here in many different ways, facilitating many different plans and arrangements that we have made. We thank all the ministers and officials of government. Let's give them a big hand. We will also benefit from the voice of the opposition, who will also participate in the conference. So we thank them and also give them a big hand. Last but not least, we give special thanks to His Excellency President David R. Granger for his interest, support of the conference, which also began long before this morning. He's not here, but we record our gratitude on behalf of all of us here for his presence this morning and for his very thoughtful, reflective, and insightful address. You know, he's a historian with one of his many hats as a historian, and I was very struck by the way in which he was able to bring the history of the University of Guyana into our current deliberations, so to continue and extend that history. We'd like to convey our thanks to His Excellency. We know that he's busy. We could see it happening here this morning. We thank you for being here and for contributing to the conference and for his continued interest and support of the Diaspora Engagement Conference. And for all those who have contributed and will contribute in any way through ideas, efforts, through work, through participation, and even through your presence during the conference. We thank you for helping to make this landmark conference a reality and a success. Apart from the discussions and deliberations, there are other activities that you'll find in your program, and another plug for the tours, because it's very important that we see some of Guyana, and in the Secretariat and from Dr. Raka Thomas, you could receive information on how you could go on those tours. So thanks to all of you on behalf of the Vice Chancellor, staff of the university, the conference planners, and all who have worked on the conference, and all who have traveled here to be part of the conference. We wish you 2 days of fruitful, excellent, and worthwhile discussions that will help to take the university and the country forward. And so, thanks, and here's to 2 very good days of deliberation. Thank you very much.
Mr. Singh, we will now adjourn, and registered participants can break out to go to the 2 sessions that will be starting. With the late start, we will begin at 10 and we'll make adjustments through the day to catch up for the half-hour delay in the start of the program. So thank you again, ladies and gentlemen, and let us break out to the presentations in room 1 and room 2. Thank you very much. David Granger, members of the Diplomatic Corps, friends from the University of Guyana,
esteemed National Assembly, members of the Diplomatic Corps, university citizens, whether at home or from abroad, good morning and greeting to all. One of my favorite philosophers, Jorge Santayana, once wrote that if you really want to know what people think, don't pay regard to what they say, pay regard to what they do. And I think that evidence of what we think of the diaspora in terms of its importance is manifested in what we are doing at this conference and with this conference to cement homeland and diaspora-based Guyanese relations. You may or may not know that this conference has 4 stated objectives. I'll remind you or tell you what they are. To discuss global best practices in diaspora engagement policies and practices, and strengthen partnerships with diaspora organizations. To engage the diaspora in facilitating the pursuit of entrepreneurship, innovation, and social and human capital opportunities. To enable diaspora and homeland citizens to give back to Guyana tangibly, and to experience some of our nation's beauty. And last but not least, the aim of this conference is to launch a Caribbean Diaspora Engagement Center to institutionalize engagement in research, in outreach, and in talent management. With Excellency and ladies and gentlemen, I want to also share with you some of the unstated objectives of this conference. One of those unstated objectives relates to the indispensability of the diaspora to the rebuilding of our university. I think it's also true to say that any observer of our nation would come to realize very quickly that we have a number of tensions in our society. Some are political, some are racial. And the reality is any effort to bring the homeland and diaspora connection is going to face some of those tensions, some of those political vicissitudes, some of those racial vicissitudes. My aim is to enable the University of Guyana to be a neutral zone of engagement that irrespective of your political apprehension or your racial-driven or other related apprehensions, you should feel comfortable working with the University of Guyana, but not necessarily be sensitive to a ministry being the source of that engagement. I'll tell you though, ladies, that a third unstated goal of our Diaspora Engagement Conference is to link our diaspora outreach to the renaissance of the university, a project that we started in June of 2016. But let me end by telling you that an important but unstated objective of mine is to use this conference this week to inject into our economy some badly needed finances to help with job creation, give a fillip to what we're doing in the economic zone. As of last night, we had 243 people registered at this conference, some from abroad, some in Guyana. And I want to tell you, Excellency, where some of our Guyanese and non-Guyanese have come from. They have come from or are coming from the Turks and Caicos, United Kingdom, Canada, Grenada, Jamaica, Barbados, Nigeria, Ghana, St. Lucia, Mexico, British Virgin Islands, Trinidad and Tobago, United States. And from the United States itself, friends, family are coming from Georgia, and Texas, New Jersey, Florida, New Mexico, California, Maryland, Virginia, Washington, D.C. Some Guyanese here are coming back after being away for decades. One Guyanese has so far the record of being away for the longest period. I want to invite her to stand. Ms. Jillian Williams is coming back to her homeland after being away for 38 years. That's the goal. Some people who are here or who will be coming later this week are not only coming for the first time in a long time, many of them are bringing non-Guyanese born friends and family. I know Norman Monroe is bringing his daughter, not Guyanese born, but Guyanese by sociological osmosis. I myself, my 2 children, not Guyanese born, and my granddaughter's coming here for the first time. And we're not unique. I know that many non-Guyanese who come here will fall in love with our homeland and will want to return. Think of what those 243 people and possibly more will need in the hotels we're staying at, the restaurants we're eating from, the taxis we're taking. The departure tax is already built into the ticket for those who are coming from abroad. The infusion of funding is not to be underestimated. As a matter of fact, I've asked one of our distinguished economists, business professors, from whom you'll be hearing later on this week, to an economic estimate of what this week will have meant for the Guyana economy. There are multipliers which we should not take for granted. But the conference today and tomorrow are not the only elements of importance that I want to encourage you to be mindful of. It's important, especially for Guyanese, myself included, who was away for a long time, to have an appreciation for the love, beauty of this native land of ours. So we're saying this week, and I want to encourage not only Guyanese who are returning, but Guyanese who live here, go to a place that you've not gone to before. We have 10 locations. If you want to go to Agua, if you want to go to Surama, if you want to go to Kaitro Falls, if you want to go to the Botanic Gardens and listen and view the birds, if you want to do a walking tour of Georgetown, don't know how many of you have gone to the Pandama Winery on the Linden-Suicide Highway. Find an opportunity to know our native land by going and visiting and falling in love, either for the first time or falling in love again. We have an opportunity, particularly the Guyanese, with remarkable time and talent to give back. And so we're encouraging folks, and if you go to page 67 of your program, you will see the 7 different opportunities to give back, whether it is 3 hours at the hospital, or 4 hours working with a school, or a few hours at a clinic. We're saying that this should be an investment of time and talent by our folk, Guyanese and non-Guyanese, in enabling the nation to be beneficiaries of the skills and time and talent that we have. So this week is a complex week of many moving parts, and we shall end the week on Friday with the investiture, and there are several other people coming for the investiture who are not for the main conference, and they are all not academics. They're not all from institutions of higher learning. Among the people coming who are on the academic side is the Vice Chancellor of the University of the West Indies, long-standing friend of mine from the University of Virgin Islands, Professor Dion Phillips. But we've got non-academics who think what we're doing at the University of Guyana is important enough for them to be here and find a way to support. Including in that set of non-academics is the President of the Caribbean Development Bank, Dr. Warren Smith. And we shall end the week right here in this room with a grand cultural extravaganza that showcases the talent of Guyanese at home and Guyanese abroad. Coming from Ghana will be a group of Guyanese. Coming from the United Kingdom will be another group of Guyanese, along with Guyanese of all races and culture within our native land, to be able to showcase what we're doing. Ladies and gentlemen, putting this together just did not happen. I'd like to invite to stand to be recognized the members of the planning committee, some based here, some based in the Caribbean, some based in Europe, some based in North America. Let's have the members of the planning committee stand to be recognized, please. Don't be shy, stand so we can recognize. Let's give them a better round of applause on that. I think they deserve it. But you would could imagine that notwithstanding the hard and talented work of the planning committee, we also could not do this without financial sponsorship. And I'll tell you what I said last night, Mr. President, at the welcome reception. We have been able to build the connectivity for this project, as we are doing for the University of Guyana writ large, by bridging the financial public sector, private sector divide. And so if you go to your program, at the end of the program, you'll see the private sector companies that have contributed and supported. You'll see the government ministries, starting with the President himself, who will lend tangibly to make this happen. You'll see also, and you'll hear tomorrow, on the diplomatic side, what the Mexican embassy has done and is doing with us, what the Indian High Commissioner has done and is doing with us. The success of this conference, the success of the University of Guyana's Renaissance cannot be a one-dimensional success. We've got to bring all the relevant constituent parts. And so I want to thank them, our supporters and our sponsors, and I view this as an initial down payment on the success of the Renaissance. So let me end where I began, and that is to invoke philosopher Jorge Santayana. You really want to know what people think? Don't pay regard to what they say, pay regard to what we do. And in the context of Santayana's prescient proposition, we intend to do something more than have a conference that meets for a week. So let me tell you what are some of the things we plan to do. We plan to produce a publication out of this conference. It will be the first product of the University of Guyana Press. We plan also to launch, we plan also to launch a Center for Regional Diaspora Engagement that can take the work started here forward, that will host every 2 years a conference that brings Guyanese, brings other diaspora folks to the homeland to have engagement, giving, not only dreaming, but also doing. We plan to have that center find a way to, in the context of some of the apprehensions that many Guyanese have about working with a government ministry, establish and manage a talent database where we can know who in the diaspora has what interests, what skill, who wants to contribute, and find a way to facilitate. We plan not only to say that we're interested in the diaspora, we plan to demonstrate by having a work program that takes this conference into the future, going from strength to strength. So I welcome you to this historic occasion. I encourage you to maximize the participation both here and elsewhere for this week. And I encourage you, if you're coming for the first time after a long time, plan to come back very soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor. I just want to acknowledge the ministers of government who are here with us today, morning to you, and to add to what the Vice Chancellor said about the sponsorship that made this conference possible. We have had some support after the programs were printed, and those additional sponsors have been updated online, and we also have some handouts to give you to let you know those additional sponsors. Now, what I'd like to do is to invite what we describe as some voices from the diaspora and the homeland to give some very short remarks as to their experiences and views at this historic time. So, in that regard, I'd like to ask Dr. Dan on the line from New York to come and speak to us for 2 minutes.
Good morning. Thank you very much for inviting me. Your Excellency, the President of Guyana, thank you. Our esteemed Vice Chancellor of the University of Guyana, thank you very much. Members of the Hard Working Committee, because you need to put a lot of effort into this to make it possible. It's not a one-man show, as you've heard. Thank you very much. Members of the University of Guyana staff, and the students, thank you. But before I start, how about those students from Guyana who went to the United States and represented us in STEM? And did so well and made us proud. And in fact, the brainchild of Mrs. Rachel. Give her a big round of applause. Now, I bring you greetings from this country. And some people say that more Guyanese live in this country than in this country. And when you look at the statistics, you find that by the year 2050, more Guyanese will be living in this country because the population will be doubling itself. So in my short presentation, let me begin by adding 3 new letters to the lexicon, which would be PGO, persons of Guyanese origin. PGO, persons of Guyanese origin. Now what is that? It doesn't matter where you are, where you belong, as long as you can identify with the dear land of Guyana, you're a PGO, a person of Guyanese origin. In 1992, President Cherry Jargon traveled to New York to thank the Diaspora for the change in government in this country. In 2015, President Granger went to New York to thank the people there for the change of government in this country. Now what does it show? It shows the power of the diaspora and how much importance these heads of state have placed in the diaspora. Now today we have created history for the very first time, because as the esteemed Vice Chancellor said, this has been in the making for a long time and it has not happened until this year and today. So today we're meeting for the very first time in one place to discuss one thing only, as to how all of us can pool our talents together to make our country better. And I'd like to recognize my very good friend, Professor Ivor Griffith, whose vision it is to have this conference today. So let's hear from him. Now I've brought with me here, I didn't come alone, I brought with me here my son, Sanjay, who was born in New York City, who loves America, but who calls himself Guyanese. Right. Now, persons like my son, who told me this morning that his genetics is tied up in this country. Persons like my son, now these persons present our first challenge to the diaspora. There are thousands of young people of Guyanese parentage who live in New York City and other countries. What do we do with them? How do we harness their talents to come and better serve this country? How about the parents with a multitude of skills that you heard about in all different fields, all different aspects of achievement? How do we involve them in research in Guyana? And that is going to be a challenge for the people over here to get involved in. And let's talk about the teachers. Guyanese teachers have been teaching the world for years in various subjects. You see them all over the planet. New York City, they're in the school system, the university system. Professor Ivor Griffith was in the administration of York College and other colleges in the United States of America. We've been lending our talents, our brains, or everything to educate the world. And the teachers deserve lots of respect and commendation this morning, because I'm a teacher myself, so I'm putting a plug in for them. Now, I bring you greetings from Richmond Hill. Now, Richmond Hill has unofficially 300,000 Guyanese. It is the biggest single concentration of Guyanese outside of Guyana. And when you look at that population, think about the enormous talent, enormous resources that Richmond Hill possesses. I will be speaking more about that in my presentation later. It has been called Little Guyana by the city of New York. That is the kind of respect that it has endeavored. And if you can't find it in Guyana, you can find it in Richmond Hill. There was one time when we used to buy Hassa from Richmond Hill and bring it to sell. And we could bring the creek water too, if you so desire. Now, when you look at the populations of Richmond Hill, the Bronx, the different states of the United States of America, added to Venezuela, the Caribbean, Brazil, and other places, you have more people living outside than inside. And the question is, what do we do with all these skills that we possess in the diaspora? The economy, as you know, has become very globalized. It means economics, it means business, it means investment. It does not only mean voluntary services to the government. But for this to happen, we have to embrace the diaspora, and we have to make it work. There are 2 streets in Richmond Hill, when we did the research, that remit $500,000 to this economy every year. Just 2 streets in Richmond Hill. Now think of the other streets when you look at it. $450 million are remitted to this country annually. Think of minus $450 million where our GDP will go. So the diaspora is presenting a very integral and important part in this country. Well, let me make this very brief. So let me make some quick suggestions. The first is, we must recognize people from abroad, Guyanese abroad, who are making enormous contributions to this country. That is one of the things we should do, reach out to Guyanese abroad who have been esteemed in various fields of endeavor. And I'd like to, this morning, recognize a certain gentleman, Mr. Reds Pereira. Remember him? Now, I would recommend that the Providence Media Center be renamed the Reds Pereira Media Center. And we should do that very quickly while he's still around. There are many Guyanese educators abroad. We should team up the robotic engineering group here with Richmond Hill High School, where the principal there is a Guyanese, and he's waiting for the call. Somebody has to make the call. Then, there are other aspects of endeavor that we should try to do. Let us use the technology to bridge the gap, so that when we use all of these, we can improve the situation in the diaspora. Now, the University of Guyana, as a start, in my mind, should sponsor an annual lecture dedicated to the ideas of Chelly Jagan, Forbes Burnham, and Walter Rodney. So that we could get all these gentlemen, the leaders of this country, their ideas and what they stand for. And we should not forget our women, because if you want to build a society, educate women. And as for the prison, Mr. President, I would recommend that you tear down the prison, build a park, so that Guyanese can go there and de-stress and refresh. And let us call the park Jagan Burnham Recreation Park. It is time that we heal. After 50 years, the wounds are still there. We want to heal, and we should use this conference, we should use the diaspora as a method of healing. And finally, if you look at this flag, see the golden arrowhead? It points upwards. So let's sing, Guyana. You did it last night, let's do it again. Onward, upward, may we ever grow. Day by day, in strength and beauty grow. Till at night, we each of us we show what Guyana's sons and daughters can be. Thank you very much.
Okay, after those remarks by Dr. Ryan, I'm going to ask Dr. Indiana Minto Boy of the University of Business to
conference delegates, good morning. It is a pleasure to be here today. I'm not Guyanese, but I feel like an honorary Guyanan today. I just want to raise a few points briefly. And these are points that are informed largely by my experience as a diasporan, as a Jamaican, and as an academic who is deeply interested in diaspora engagement. I think this conference is very important. It is significant that it is being organized by the University of Guyana, an academic institution. And this suggests the significant role that the university, the academic, has to play and can play in engaging the diaspora across the region. As a neutral player, there are lingering issues within the diaspora, and the university, the academic institution, has a key role to play in being that linchpin to pull together the different interests, the different stakeholders around the issues of engagement. I may not look it, but I've been married for some time and I've known my husband for 28 years. And I say that to suggest that diaspora engagement is like any other relationship, like a marriage. The players have to get to know each other. So research, getting to know the diaspora is significant. Likewise, it cannot be an extractive relationship in which Caribbean governments and peoples tend to do at times, is to view the diaspora as that group from which they will extract things from. The suggestion is that it ought to be a mutually beneficial relationship, one in which the diaspora benefits and or peoples across the region benefit. That means understanding that a strong, informed, empowered, knowledgeable Guyanese diaspora is also a strong Guyana. It's also a Guyana where its people will feel empowered, will feel as if being a part of the diaspora doesn't mean that they cannot contribute and that they are not appreciated. There's sometimes a tendency to think of diasporans as the people who left, who ran away. But more and more there needs to be a greater understanding that those persons who ran away are the persons who actually have the resources to contribute. There's a desire to contribute, and there ought to be more understanding and steps towards making those steps to enable that contribution. So I think I want to close. Having a hand in the program, I don't want to abuse it, but just to underscore the importance of this conference, the importance of the dialogue which is to take place, and how important it is in actually marking that movement from what I've seen as almost a silent partnership over the years between the diaspora and the Caribbean to moving into a more formalized engagement where the diaspora is recognized, a place is made for the diaspora to participate, and that participation is facilitated. Thank you, and I wish you a wonderful conference.
Thank you. Well, we do know that we have the head of state of Guyana here, His Excellency Mr. David Granger. And of course, as head of state, his job never really stops. And we understand he has to deal with some of these matters of state that don't stop. So what we're going to do is to adjust the program and to ask His Excellency, who needs no introduction here or abroad, to come and give his remarks to formally open this Diaspora Engagement Center.
I first must apologize for disrupting the program, but somebody disrupted my life just now. Ministers of the government, members of the National Assembly, members of the Diplomatic Corps, Principal and Vice Chancellor of the University of Guyana, Professor Edward Griffith, presenters, officials of the University of Guyana, members of the judiciary, private sector. I'm very happy to be here this morning, and I'm very sorry to have to leave you so quickly. But this is an important ceremony for me. As you know, I enrolled in the University of Guyana as an undergraduate in 1965, 52 years ago. And I went back to the same classrooms I left the previous year as a student at Queen's College. The University of Guyana, established only 2 years before I entered in 1963, had no campus at the time. Classes had to be conducted in the evening when the QC students left. Prime Minister Forbes Brennan received 586 hectares of the former sugar plantation Turkine on behalf of the Guyanese nation on the 24th of May 1966, just 2 days before independence. And he embarked on the construction of the campus, giving the University of Guyana a permanent home. And that campus, as you know, was opened a day or two after we became a republic in February 1970. At a personal level, I feel that I've been a witness to the university's passage from its infancy. I love the university as a student. I love the university as a lecturer. I love the university as a member of council. And I love the university as president of the Guild of Graduates. As president of the country, I still love the university. Not as a parent, but as a product of that great institution. And I'd like this morning to recommit myself to the university's progress. The university from the start suffered from what I would call birth defect. The ordinance was assented to only in April 1963, and the university was inaugurated less than 6 months later, on the 1st of October 1963, and classes began on the 2nd of October. So there was something of a haste. But worse than the haste was that the university was born in the midst of political disturbances in the 1960s. And regrettably, those disturbances deprived it of the support of a significant section of society. The decision of the government of the day not to integrate with the University of the West Indies family reflected its own refusal not to integrate with the Federation of the West Indies. Dr. Eric Williams, then the UE Pro-Chancellor, failed to convince the government not to establish an independent university. Well, the decision to stay outside the UE family is history, but there have been some consequences. The university in its early decades, in my view, drifted from its objectives of discovery and dissemination of knowledge to national development. It enrolled a disproportionately high number of students in the arts and social sciences as compared with the natural sciences. About 95% of the students in the first decade, for example, were employees of the public service, of public corporations, of the teaching profession, and fewer than 5% came from the private sector. Certain growing pains compounded the university's birth defects. The economic situation in the late 1970s and early 1980s had a negative impact on financing. Several programs could no longer be supported by state funds. The university's results fell behind the UWI's Caribbean campuses in Barbados, at Cape Hill, in Jamaica, Mona, and at St. Augustine in Trinidad and Tobago. I would say, however, that the university experienced something of a scientific and technological shift as Guyana became a republic in 1970. It was the start of a brilliant era of visionary leadership. Dennis Irvin, appointed Vice Chancellor in 1969, was a scientist. He thought as a scientist, he acted as a scientist. And he served under a government which sought to encourage greater access to higher education by abolishing tuition fees in 1974. Irvin understood the need and undertook the task of balancing the university's affinity for the humanities with the necessity for embracing the sciences. You'll get accustomed to that. The university during the Irvin era employed lecturers from academia around the world. It enjoyed respect for its intellectual rigor. It expanded the breadth of its programs to include agriculture, education, earth and environmental sciences, fisheries, the natural sciences and social sciences, and technology. The university, thereby, in spite of its financial and material constraints, provided opportunities for thousands of Guyanese who never before dreamt of acquiring tertiary education. The university's second science and technology shift is about to start. This country is on a developmental pathway to become a green state. The Green Development Agenda will promote increased investment in biodiversity management, in coastal zone management, in solid waste management, in ecological and environmental services, in eco-education and eco-tourism, in information and communication technology, in the extension of its protected areas, and in the generation of renewable energy. These are the objectives of the Green State. Guyana, located in the center of the Guyana Shield, one of the world's last remaining tracts of virgin rainforest, is rich in biodiversity. It is a green global asset which must be protected from mankind and for the sustainable development of countries which belong to the Shield. Guyana's ecosystems support diverse species to the extent that, at least up to 2010, Guyana's species status was estimated at 8,000 plant species, 467 species of fish, 130 amphibians, 179 reptiles, 814 birds, 225 mammals, 1,673 arthropods, over 1,200 fungi, 33 bacteria, 13 nematodes, 17 mollusks, and an estimated 30 viruses. Guyana has a total of 1,182 native tree species. Guyana therefore possesses abundant natural capital. Capital which ranges from the islands of the Essequibo, the three largest of which are the same size as the British Virgin Islands, from the lowlands and wetlands of the coastland, from the highlands, the grasslands, the rainforests of the hinterland, the spectacular rapids, rivers and waterfalls, and the lakes. All of these provide a habitat to scores of rare animals, including 20 of the world's largest, including high level of endemicity. Guyana possesses priceless natural resources. We cannot sit on our hands. We cannot sit on these bountiful resources. Guyana, larger than England and Scotland combined. There's a British High Commissioner here. I normally take great pleasure in saying. Guyana, larger than England and Scotland combined, however, is deficient in the physical infrastructure essential for economic development. Development in the form of aerodromes, bridges, highways, housing, deep water ports, and stellings. Guyana's coastal and riverine defenses, its conservancies and drainage and irrigation systems must be repaired and maintained continuously in order to protect human habitation from the adverse effects of climate change and the rising sea levels caused by global warming, flooding, and extreme weather patterns. Guyana's green development strategy, therefore, aims at advancing climate adaptation so as to protect its fragile coastline and to reduce environmental hazard, which can be destructive of our people's livelihood. The university, this university, UG, is central to fulfilling the scientific and technological objectives which the Green State required. The university must drive the intellectual processes of green development by becoming the incubator of technology and the nurturer of skills and talents. The university must establish institutions to educate students to advance our green development. Institutions such as the Biodiversity Center. I think I see Dr. Thomas smiling. This country needs biologists. This country needs botanists, needs zoologists to document and study its unique and unmatched biodiversity. It needs engineers to erect infrastructure in the hinterland, to install hydroelectric, wind, solar, and biomass energy generation plants. It needs geologists and gemologists to provide services to the sustainable management of our extractive sectors. It needs agriculturists to promote food security. It needs technologists to develop our information and communication technology. Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, the University of Guyana, if it is to survive and thrive, must become a university for Guyana. The National University must be responsive to national needs. How could it be otherwise? Thank you.
Thank you for those remarks, Mr. President, and we appreciate you having to leave. With the short remarks from the Diaspora homeland, and we'll continue with Mr. Chet Boland, Director of Guyana Diaspora Incorporated, who's going to give us remarks from Russia.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Honorable Ministers of Government, members of the National Assembly, members of the Diplomatic Corps, colleagues, friends. It is indeed a pleasure for me to be here. I am a lawyer by training. I have lived and worked in Russia for the last 25 years, where I run a tax and accounting advisory firm advising foreign companies coming to do business in Russia. It has always been my dream, my desire, to take those skills and the experiences I have learned in general and specifically working with foreign investors to parlay those into Guyana. It's an issue I've had for a long time, and finally in the last 12 months I've been spending almost half of my time here in Guyana doing various things. One of the projects that I've worked on, actually me and my partners and colleagues have set up one of the first crowdfunding platforms here in Guyana called Slingshot Funding, and actually a sponsor of the event here today. One other project that I started working on, which I call my utopian dream, was to set up something called Guyana Diaspora Inc. This had just started when I met the Honorable Vice Chancellor, and he told me what he was doing, and it was clear that our objectives coincide, and it did not make sense for us to work independently. And he was kind enough to invite me to join the planning committee. I'm convinced that, like I said, when I met the Vice Chancellor, it used to be my utopian dream, but now, today as we hear, it's no longer utopia, it's real, it can happen, it's realistic. And I like to say that the diaspora holds, if not the key, they hold a very important key in Guyana's development. So I'd like to encourage all of you, I'd like to thank those who are here, I'd like to thank more people who are here in Guyana who participated, I'd like to thank those like myself who've come a far way to be here, for us to indeed join forces, work hard, and make this a reality, make my utopian dream a reality. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now I'd like to ask Dr. Raquel Thomas, Director of Resource Management and Trade, your Krama, to give our remarks on this event.
Good morning, everyone. All protocols observed. I was thinking what I was going to say this morning, but since I live here, I did study abroad, but I came back because Guyana has so many wonderful things to offer. I'm actually a biologist and a very proud University of Guyana graduate, part of the alumni. Can everybody raise their hands who attended University of Guyana? Wonderful, wonderful. So I'm really proud. I started UG about 30 years ago when I was a very young, still a teen. And I did do further studies. I am a biologist, a tropical forest ecologist actually. I did postgrad. And you know, when you study tropical forest ecology, it really makes no sense to stay in a country like the United Kingdom. So I came back. And we have over 85% forests in Guyana, and I work currently at a wonderful organization called Iwokrama. I think I do have a theory, and I see Major General Joe Singh here. I do have a theory that once you're Guyanese and you get the opportunity to really experience the vast beauty of this country, you never want to leave. At least that happened with me. Or in case of some people, you keep coming back. I know that some people have been away for decades, and I really would like to encourage you to actually try doing one of the visits on Thursday into the interior, so you can start experiencing this beautiful country. And of course, once you do that, you will keep coming back. From the perspective of the diaspora and people staying back in Guyana, I like that, what that message says on that particular poster. It says, making a difference together. I often hear people speak of the diaspora and people here as if we're separate. I think too often there's a perception that we are separate and we should be separate or whatever as well, but making a difference together, I think, is very important. I think we have to work together. I was fortunate to attend a diaspora meeting in DC in April, where I happened to be presenting at a wonderful conference called Earth Optimism. One of the messages, I just want to say, one of the messages of that conference really resonated with me. It spoke to looking beyond the doom and gloom. Too often we look at the negative and forget there is so much positivity around. And in Guyana as well, sometimes we speak to a lot of negativity, but there's so many positive things happening here. And we really have to start engaging that positive energy and harnessing partnerships to really make Guyana a better place, to make the University of Guyana a better place. I am really grateful to the University of Guyana for giving me the foundation. I went to UG at a time when there was national service, and I enjoyed national service. I know some of my colleagues here, Paul, who's one of my best friends. She was in the same village with me, and I know some other persons been here. There are many debates whether it was a good thing or not. But for me, it was amazing. I got to see Kimbia and Ibini and beautiful parts of this country. And maybe that is what inspired me to actually become a tropical forest ecologist, and really have propelled me to really try and move around this country to enjoy the beauty, the food, the people. I mean, it's not just a natural environment and the natural beauties of our food, our culture, our people. And I think all the foreigners among us, the non-Guyanese, would agree with me. I see quite a few here. I think Mr. Bill Mayer from the UK is here, so I think, and some other people would agree with me. So I think we have to harness those positive elements. At the DC Diaspora meeting that I went to, there were 3 ministers present. And one of the persons did say something that I had to check back because I didn't have my experience. But I think I was staying here, and she said that when they come here, they don't feel welcomed. I think you have to deal with all these elephants in the room. They don't feel that Guyanese home make them feel welcome. And I took a step. I said, really? Because I work with many people coming from the diaspora, and I don't have that experience. I'm living here. And I think we have to start having a conversation with each other and among each other, so the diaspora is talking at one end, and the people at home are fretting at the other end. And we need to really start engaging and actually putting together projects that can actually help this country. One of the fundamental areas that I think we can all help in, we don't have to wait till the government, is education. Education is the root. I mean, look at the wonderful work the Team Guyana did. It was Karen and Mrs. Granger's homeland, and St. Rose's girl, by the way, St. Rose's alumni, Minister Cathy Hughes, are you here? It was homeland and diaspora working together to make a fantastic thing happen. That thing had me so energized. I know I have no talent in that area. I like plants and animals and art and so on, but I have no talent in robotics. But it just had the internet blasting. We were on top. We finished in top 10. It's just amazing. It's amazing what we could do. I would like every child in this country to visit the interior. That's my personal dream. I'm sorry President isn't here, but I know he agrees with me. I think when you get that experience, even if you don't stay, even if you go abroad and you share your knowledge with the world, we're all global citizens now. I think when you get the experience as a youth of experiencing Guyana's interior, you know, when you burst out of the forest into the Rupunui, you go to Pomeroon, the most beautiful river, the Moruga River. I love that river. It's my favorite river. My grandmother is from the Pomeroon. So there's a deep love and connection at all these places. But I do believe fundamentally, if our kids can get that experience, they'll develop a national spirit of loving this country. And even if they don't decide to stay, they will always come back and contribute. That's my personal belief. And I'd like to challenge everybody in this room to let us make that happen. Let us give children that do not have the opportunity to do this, help projects regarding these areas to make that happen. And I think in that way, that kind of education and other processes like the robotics, the business innovation is very important for young people. We can do it. Let us, the diaspora, and us, what we call the homies, I like your term. What is it? PGO? People. I like that. I mean, we just do away with our word diaspora. And we all become one. And let's work together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Raquel. And after that, what we have now is the performance, a cultural item by our distinguished artist in resident, Kit Waite, and the Renaissance performance.
This is a composition that I call View from the Shore, and it's the first time it's being played anywhere in the world. So, View from the Shore. And then we go into my other composition, which is the rest of the band.
My pleasure now to ask Mr. Alan Hussein, Senior Lecturer in the Faculty of Education and Humanities in the University of Guyana, to give the vote of thanks. Mr. Hussein.
Thank you, Dr. York, members of the Diplomatic Corps, ministers and other officials of government, Vice Chancellor, officials and members of the University of Guyana community, members of the Diaspora and the local community, invitees, ladies and gentlemen all. As we stand on the brink of starting our conference presentations, it is appropriate that we thank those persons, individuals, groups and companies who have contributed to the success of this conference and to ensuring that we are here to spend 2 days in fruitful deliberations which could have great consequences for the development of our country. I'd like to begin by thanking Professor Ivor Griffith, the Vice Chancellor of the University of Guyana, for his vision and energy. Please give him a big hand. In conceptualizing the Diaspora Conference and working very hard to bring it to success. The Diaspora Engagement Committee, ably headed by Dr. Fitzgerald Yaw, give him also a big hand. And the hard-working members of this committee, both locally and abroad, who spent many months working through the fine details and making sure that everything is perfectly planned for what we're going to have here last night to this morning and the few days coming up. And also behind the scenes, I must say, the members of the University of Guyana clerical staff, persons like Christine, Daniel, Andrew, and others who have been working behind the scenes to make sure that arrangements are in place. You will find them in the Secretariat just outside of this room. Please stop by to tell them thanks because they did a lot of work behind the scenes to make sure that arrangements go smoothly. And I could also at this point say that all of you are reminded to visit the Secretariat if you are interested in the Come Back Day tours. And in the Secretariat you'll find information. You'll also find information from Dr. Raquel Thomas. She will be in the room with the booths to arrange a tour. So we thank all of these persons who have been working on all of these details for the conference. Our corporate sponsors, we cannot forget them because without them, the conference would not have been possible. We thank them for their donations in cash and in kind. Speakers here this morning, and speakers with the rest of today and tomorrow from home and diaspora. We thank you for your bringing the fruits of your thoughts, your expertise, your experience, your research, and giving it generously to this effort. We thank you for doing that so generously and wholeheartedly. Artists in residence, Mr. Keith Wade, and Renaissance performers, we thank you for your musical expertise both last evening, today, and I'm sure for the rest of the conference. The last piece that you did was excellent. I was beating along with you as you went along there. So thank you very much for that. All the persons who will be serving as chairs, rapporteurs, the photographers and everybody else, we thank you also. We thank all of you who are here this morning, special invitees, ministers of government, officials of government, taking time off from your busy work, members of the University of Guyana community, deans, heads of departments, and lecturers. We thank you for being here. The management and staff of the Ramada Princess Georgetown Hotel, thank you very much for the excellent arrangements both last evening, this morning, and I know you will continue to do a good job as we go along. Having these arrangements made is very good. It allows us to focus on our discussions and so on, so we thank you. Members of the media for being here, representatives in the booth, bringing different companies and sponsorship support and dimensions to this conference, we thank all of you. I must also say special thanks to the members of the diplomatic corps who will bring their experience and add their voice to the conference. Please give them a big hand. They will bring their dimensions of lived experience to this conference to help us as we now begin to embark on this era of diaspora engagement. Ministers of the government who have supported the conference long before it started here in many different ways, facilitating many of the different plans and arrangements that we have made. We thank all the ministers and officials of government. Let's give them a big hand. We will also benefit from the voice of the opposition, who will also participate in the conference. So we thank them and also give them a big hand. Last but not least, we give special thanks to His Excellency President David Arthur Granger for his interest, support of the conference, which also began long before this morning. He's not here, but we record our gratitude on behalf of all of us here for his presence this morning and for his very thoughtful, reflective, and insightful address to know he's a historian, one of his many hats as a historian. And I was very struck by the way in which he was able to bring the history of the University of Guyana into our current deliberations, so as to continue and extend that history. We'd like to convey our thanks to His Excellency. We know that he's busy. We could see it happening here this morning. We thank him for being here and for contributing to the conference and for his continued interest and support of the Diaspora Engagement Conference. And for all those who have contributed and will contribute in any way through ideas, efforts, through work, through participation, and even through your presence during the conference. We thank you for helping to make this landmark conference a reality and a success. Apart from the discussions and deliberations, there are other activities that you'll find in your program, and another plug for the tours, because it's very important that we see some of Guyana, and in the Secretariat and from Dr. Raquel Thomas, you could receive information on how you could go on those tours. So thanks to all of you on behalf of the Vice Chancellor, staff of the university, the conference planners, and all who have worked on the conference, and all who have traveled here to be part of the conference. We wish you 2 days of fruitful, excellent, and worthwhile discussions that will help to take the university and the country forward. And so, thanks, and here's to 2 very good days of deliberation. Thank you very much.
Those words from Mr. Hussein. We will now adjourn, and registered participants can break out to go to the 2 sessions that will be started. With the late start, we will begin at 10 and we'll make adjustments through the day to catch up for the half-hour delay in the start of the program. So thank you again, ladies and gentlemen, and let's break out to the presentations in rooms 1 and room 2. Thank you very much.